right, well, welcome everybody to our November PAS meeting, or PAST, Panhandle Archaeological Society of Texas, as we are now called. I'm the president, Erin Frigo, and tonight our guest is Mike McBride, talking about the Pine Ridge Preceramic Project, a summary of 3 field seasons at August Pine Ridge, Belize. So I don't know if we've had a talk about Belize before, honestly. Um, but before I hand the floor over to him, as always, please make sure that your mics are turned off just to kind of minimize any interference. And with that, I will give the floor to you, Mike.
Well, thank you. Let me thank you, Aaron. Let me make sure I can get this thing ramped up here. Okay, can y'all see that okay?
Yep, looking good.
Um this thing is a little weird. I'm wondering what you're actually seeing. Because uh
So
I've
we
got
are
it in show.
seeing, I think this is your title page, Paleo-Indian and Archaic Occupation in
Yeah.
Northern Belize. Is that what you wanted?
And
I think
and
it's grabbing I think it's
yeah,
grabbing the whole screen.
well,
So
we're
Oh,
seeing the sides, the
oh yeah, we are
upcoming,
seeing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
upcoming slides.
Yeah, let me get. I was afraid of that. So let me see if I can't get out of this without losing everybody. Um, I apologize. This is
No worries.
I'm sorry. I need to.
I think if you go up to go ahead and click on your first slide first. There you go. And if you go up to slideshow,
Yeah.
you go. There, yeah, from
Okay. Yeah.
beginning.
Presenter view. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's.
click
I
from
think.
beginning over on the left side. There you go.
Okay. I
There
think.
we go.
Yeah. I think that's it. Okay. Let me. Okay. All right. Well, once again, thanks a lot for for inviting me and everything. I suspect not a whole lot of folks are much aware of what goes on in Central America, things like that. You may know a little bit about the Maya area and Maya archaeology and culture and everything. Um, but really what this is about is not only some personal stuff that I've done in the past with groups in the Maya area in Mexico and Guatemala, but it's kind of a finding the importance of what John and I have begun doing. Um, oh, sorry. But anyway, no, I spent about 30 years prior to this, doing avocational work with some projects in Central America. I was invited to Belize by Dr. Kat Brown and Jason Yeager from UTSA to do some church studies and lithic studies. I've kind of done lithic studies for about 25 years and experimental flint knapping and everything like that. So they kind of gave me my first broach into Belize about 10 years ago. Um, and started learning about the archaeology in the whole country and everything. One of the neat things about Belize archaeology is it's run by the Belize Institute of Archaeology there in the capital, which is part of the Ministry of Culture. And the institute uh, permits all of the archaeology projects that happen in Belize. Currently, I think there's about 18 of them that are permitted, and every other year, the institute puts on a symposium, and when you do your permit, you do commit to come to the symposium and present your work, which is kind of neat because during a 3-day symposium, you can see what is happening all over the country with these projects and what they're doing and whatnot, and it's really useful and a really interesting time to see what else is going on there. As I was doing some church studies and lithics and everything, uh, what interested me was the documentation of the really old, what we call pre-ceramic or pre-Maya lithics and those points. Um, Archaeology in Belize is known that there's Clovis age material there, but the points and everything, the lithics that have been found are none of them were in context. They're surface finds that the farmers find or the farmers find. They'll kind of bring it into the museums or something like that. So there was this underlying knowledge that there was Clovis age occupation probably in Belize, but it was not. None of these projects, none of them, had really ever gone after a thorough study of the period, because most of the dollars, the grant dollars, and most of the support dollars for these projects were aimed at Maya culture, Maya buildings, Maya everything, and then development of tourism. So this is a real unknown area for Belize archaeology. Um, when I start, I regularly went to some of the artifact shows here in the United States just for context, and I started seeing some of these points show up in these American collections at these artifact shows, and was pretty sure that they were the same type that we're seeing in Belize, and a very limited assemblage in Belize. And so I kind of gained the trust of a number of collectors and whatnot, and got them to trust me with a little bit of information as far as steering me in the right direction and everything like that there in Belize. And uh, went down on my own uh, in the summer of 22, and actually went to the area where the collectors were saying this is kind of where they're coming from, and came back. John Lose and I had really never worked together before. We knew each other and everything, but his background includes a fair amount of archaeology in Belize, and his interest has always been in the the Paleo-Indian period, the late Pleistocene, early Holocene period there in Belize, and he'd done a fair amount of work there. But there again, his projects really never concentrated on the study or the finding uh, of the lithics there. So anyway, he and I went down. we kind of met some of the villagers there, and I'll kind of go over that. And so he really got excited because this is the kind of stuff that he had been looking for a long time during his projects there in Belize about 20 years ago. So we got we he got very interested, and we agreed that he and I would put together a project. So we did. So in the winter of 2023, we wrote a proposal. We got very little grant money, but we did write a proposal for the Institute of Archaeology. They accepted it. We told them where we wanted to work, which is an area that nobody else was working, nor was anybody interested, because as you'll see in the area of August Pine Ridge, there is no Maya archaeology. This is kind of an area where there are no Maya buildings, no Maya, nothing, there's just been no archaeology done there because nobody had the reason to do it. So we also made really good friends with the local people, the village council at August Pine Ridge. And so we got our paperwork done and formed up a team, and began in that year. Really, what the background was that the peopling of the Americas. There's a lot of theories out there that are being researched. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. As far as coming from Europe, coming from Africa, coming across the Pacific from Polynesia, and then really coming out of Beringia, out of the Bering Strait, the ancient Bering Strait area during the last ice age, coming down the Pacific, etc. So, excuse me. Let me see if I got that right. So, as far as we know right now, and the DNA evidence kind of favors it that the first major incursions into the Americas came out of Beringia, middle late ice age, 20,000 years ago, 18,000 years ago, theoretically on skin boats down the Pacific coast, finding areas where they could colonize, coming down the Pacific, moving inland. And so that was kind of the current theory of all of this migration into the Americas about 17 to 18,000 years ago. So if y'all have not been to Belize nor ever really thought to look it up on a map, Belize sits in this, right due south of the Yucatan Peninsula, fronts up on the western side of the Caribbean Sea. It's a pretty small country, but Belize is very friendly to academic archaeology. Number one, the native language, the official national language is English. Belize used to be British Honduras, which is part of the crown as a colony, and is still a member of the Commonwealth. But it got its independence in the early '80s, and has its own constitution now. But English remained as the legal language for the whole country, which makes it really easy to document and communicate things like that. So here's the area that I was directed to initially by some of the collectors and things like that, to the village of August Pine Ridge. It sits up in the northwest corner of Belize. It's a very rural area. Orange Walk to the north is a town. It's kind of the district capital of about 20 or 30,000 people, and it's a fairly large town. But south of there, when you get out of town, it becomes very rural, farmland, pasture land, things like that. all the way, for miles and miles down to the capital of Belmopan. So what we were faced with is the the uh, the industry came in. What happened in the mid 1950s is the Mennonites started arriving, immigrating from Canada and Europe, and buying land in northern Belize to establish communities. And uh, everybody knows, like the Amish, they're very big. They're very big farmers and ranchers. And so the Pine Ridge here, this area used to be a very large pine forest. Um, the farmers came in and started cutting down the forest, selling off the wood, um, clearing the land for farming and pastures. But there was there was really nothing that would grow in the August Pine Ridge area because it sits on a very broad sand ridge. But what happened when the land was cleared in the 50s, construction started, and they started mining the sand out of the area for use in cement trucks to support the local construction area. So this is the landscape. This is decades and decades of digging sand, mining sand out of the area. Um, there's not much that grows on it because once it's stripped, the land, the sand is really acidic. It doesn't support big time farming or whatever. They do establish ranches on it, but this was this was the area that we were going to research. So when I talk about sand mining, and this plays a big role, uh, out in the sand pits, and there are miles of these sand pits. There's no machinery other than the big dump trucks that come in. All of the sand mining is actually done by hand. Usually, it's in family groups where the older brother will get hired by construction company with a couple of trucks. Um, on a daily basis, depending on where the construction is happening, the brother with the truck will get a call. He'll call, the other brothers and cousins or whatever, take the truck out in the sand pits and form a group of 4 or 5 guys with shovels and pull the truck into a kind of an open area that's not been dug before, and those are getting more rare. Um, and then about 45 minutes later, you have a dump truck full of about 8 yards of really fresh, fluffy white sand to deliver to the concrete makers. So hopefully y'all can see this. It's This is what these guys do for a living. This is one of the support industries of the whole village, and this is how the guys make their money doing this pretty much every day. But what happens is, as they're digging through that sand on a random basis, they find these artifacts. They're not looting them out. They're not, there's no buildings or anything here. These artifacts just occur very randomly in this sand that they're mining, which is about a meter and a half deep. And that's the way it's been ever since they started. The unfortunate thing is that the some of the artifacts became known as being valuable, so some of them left the country. But the majority of the stuff that they're finding in these sand pits, they were just taking it home. And so many of the families, many of the family houses and compounds in the village have these boxes of these, literal family heirlooms that their grandfather or uncle or somebody has dug out of the sand. They brought them home. They know they're they know they're valuable, at least for their memories and everything. So a lot of the families do have these boxes and boxes of these artifacts. And so that's where John and I first started, is meeting and getting to be friends with the people in the village, um, who had these, and they were very open. We were the first ones to show up with any interest in what their family heirlooms looked like. And of course, what we started recognizing is this is all really old artifacts. So the next part of it was, if we're gonna excavate, we're gonna try to properly research this. We got to kind of learn the land. The sand ridge is really dry. There's a major river system on the east and west, but there's about 10 miles of sand ridge that's very dry. Although there are these bajos occasionally, and what we kind of surmised is that this fresh water, these bajos were really current springs, and probably ancient springs on the sand ridge, and they were the only fresh source of fresh water for miles. So if that was the case in ancient times, if we were looking for occupation, these are the areas where it would be that it would be likely that we might be able to find it. And in fact, when we started looking at the various areas where these bajos were, when we really got to know some of the workers and everything, they related that when they dug in these areas, when they dug the sand around these areas, that they did find a lot of, as I say, they found a lot of stones. So we set off, we coined the term Paleo Islands, which were basically looking across this landscape, looking for areas of undisturbed sediment. And we were able to find these little islands, basically, of 30 or 40 meters of undug land, where we could actually get in there, clear it off, and actually put in some controlled excavation units. But this is kind of what these little paleo islands look like. As you can see, this is really easy digging because it's really white, fluffy sand. It screens really easy. So we could carry on the excavations fairly rapidly. We also did surveys. The surveys, just like some of the test units, showed that there was an abundant amount of lithics in the sand. They had the real old look to them, a lot of patina, and a lot of the napping technique did look pretty paleo type. So we continued on in several areas over the last 3 years around these bajos, and have started amassing our catalog. In the meantime, we're doing some of our own field work there with grad students, so kind of participating with some of the universities and graduate education. And then the neat thing was we started getting invited out to the local schools, the local elementary schools and high schools, to actually present some of our work, because these kids, the Belizeans really don't know a great deal about their own heritage. They know a fair amount about the Maya, because a lot of these kids, especially in northern Belize, are just they are Maya families that immigrated from South America, South Mexico, over the decades. So they know a little bit about that, but they really don't have much of a concept as far as what came before the Maya, or why it's so important to Belize heritage. And then we also are able to do workshops for some of our colleagues for some of the other uh, projects there that are happening in Belize. Uh, some of the members of the staff of the Institute of Archaeology, since they've really never seen excavations into Paleo-Indian material. They've come out and we've done some workshops with them. It's been a uh, really good educational effort and partnership with these folks. So where are we? What have we learned? Um, our target area was the late Pleistocene, early Holocene, the Clovis period, and into what we might know as a very early Archaic. Um, the preliminary findings from just our first visits to the village showed that there was stuff there. And so as we collected, various artifacts from the village collections on loan, uh, there were so many of these that we really understood that we were in the right place. And with our relationship with the villagers and the people who actually had these collections, was strong enough that we could start out, building a proper catalog. To date, I think our the catalog of the late Pleistocene, early Holocene lithics, diagnostic lithics, where we're really solid, is well over 150 pieces. Before we started 4 years ago, the entire catalog of Belizean archaeology uh, that had these type lithics in them probably numbered about 20 pieces in all. So the amount of material that is in this one area, and this is about a mile and a half square area of sand pits, where we were working and where these other people were working, where these artifacts are coming out of, that it's such a dense area of ancient occupation that we are very fortunate to have ended up just right in the midst of it. And the other thing is that we've got so many good samples of various types, we can really start to drill down on what we're really looking at. Um, in the area, there are Maya artifacts. These are all kind of Maya artifacts, typical classic period Maya artifacts. There are, small to medium sized Maya cities within about 12 or 14 miles of us. So there was obvious traffic across the sand ridge back and forth, and stuff gets dropped. And, so there is the presence of some Maya artifacts. But, when you're in Maya archaeology, one of the keys is when you find settlement, even small house mounds and things like that, you always find ceramics. Uh, in everything that we have looked at and excavated and everything like that, there are really and truly there are no ceramics on the sand on the sand ridge. Um, the Maya just did not settle there because the sand is too acidic. The sand is really too hot, and corn will not grow there. So the Maya had no reason to settle there because they couldn't grow maize. So that's why that I think that's the reason why there's just really a lack of Maya classic period occupation here. Um, Kind of starting pre-Maya, we do have a bit of evidence of these lithics here. These adzes are identified. They're pretty well known in Belize from the pre-Maya period, just before a lot of settlement started taking place. This is kind of the period where maize first started showing up in Central America about 1500 BC, 2000 BC. This is real rudimentary farming, but this is kind of the proof that they did kind of start to settle here, and there was occupation in this period here. Um, we have found a lot of these groundstone tools, these bowls and mortars, things like that. And I'm pretty sure what these are precursors to manos and metates. We find a lot of manos and metates, the flat grinding stones and everything, in Maya archaeology because they had a lot of corn to grind. This is, I think, in our period pre-Maya. This is what they started using to grind the wild seeds and things like that, and kind of precursors to the mano and metate. And we see a lot of these. They're great big, heavy ground out bowls. And the mortars that we find like that, it's just a big mortar and pestle for grinding seeds and things like that. But it is definitely pre-Maya. Talking about the late Paleo-Indian period, we've got enough of a catalog built up now that we're really starting to comfortably subdivide what we're looking at into lithic morphologies. And really what we've got is excellent examples of the unfluted lanceolets. These are kind of similar to the Midland Plainview, Eden points, things like that. Those unfluted lanceolets right after fluted bifaces stopped. And then the newer types, we have this Pine Ridge point, which is long, it's thin. The blade is usually triangular, but it's got a real narrow stem on it. And they're usually really, really well made. They've never showed up in any Belize or Central American archaeology. We were the first to document them and write them up. The sawmill point was identified as a type a number of years ago, but we've got whereas the previous Belize catalog had maybe three or four of them. We've got dozens of those that have come out of the sand pit. And then the low point is it's not documented anywhere else in Central America either. And in fact, the August Pine Ridge area, the Belize area, is the only place where this point is known to occur. So here are other examples of these unfluted lanceolets. Dr. Fred Valdez and his project about 30 miles from us documented one about 4 years ago. But this piece here, along with several low points, was brought to him at his project from a family from August Pine Ridge, just for them to study and photograph and everything like that. So we knew that initial one that I saw about 4 years ago with Fred did come from August Pine Ridge, and then from the collections from the village or whatever, that type is pretty well established. And I really kind of believe that it is just right after fluted points were the people stopped making fluted points. That is the fishtails that I'll get to, and Clovis looking points. These are some other samples. We really try to do some comparative studies with other areas of Central America to see if there's information sharing, technology sharing, things like that. These points came out of South Central Mexico, south of Mexico City. They kind of have the same look, but there's just not a great deal of documentation to try to date them or whatever. But it's kind of a reference we use because we've just not seen any others in Central America. So the Pine Ridge points, these nobody had ever seen these before until we started documenting them and whatnot. Um, we actually named the point after the Pine Ridge in our first documentation last year, and this is a really really interesting lithic. Um, we've got dozens of them now, and so what we're able to start doing is getting more defined types of these things. Um, uh, I've made type one, this rounded shoulder type with a really narrow stem on it, triangular, a really sharp triangular blade. The type two is kind of the same thing, only the shoulders are much sharper, but they do, the stem is kind of the same and the blade is kind of the same, but the shoulders are kind of contracted up into almost barbs. And so here's samples from South America. These Paihan points were pretty well known back uh, about 30 years from there, and they seem to be late paleo from northern Peru. And then these other ones from northern the Amazon basin seem to be late paleo though, but they've had real trouble dating them up in the Amazon, just because it's really rough archaeology there. They just don't have really clear dates on them, but they're very similar. The sawmill points, we've got a very large catalog of these. They go from anywhere from like two and a half uh, inches on up to the bigger ones. They may have been knives, but the interesting thing is they kept that really narrow stem on them, and it seems kind of dinky. Not sure what they hafted them with, but a lot of the ones that we find have the stem broken off, even though the blade is pretty pristine. And then we've got these other kind of mid-size. We don't know what. This is a different type, but we're just. It's kind of an in-between model between the sawmill and perhaps the Pine Ridge, but it's probably late Paleo period nonetheless. And so, one of the theories we're working on is that the transition from the the Pine Ridge type one to type two. The notches are more established, the barbs are more established in the sawmill points, and then they end up with these really deeply sharp barbed sawmills. So it's kind of a lithic technology progression that we're studying. And the low point, like I said, is nowhere else anywhere in Central America. These are great big heavy points. They're really well made. They're really identifiable because they're thicker and heavier than any other type anywhere in Central America, and they're made the same no matter where we find them in the sand ridge, and they have found some in other areas of Belize. I've been working on the napping technology of low points. What we have found is these really nice bifaces. They're really well prepared bifaces. They're big, they're thick, almost as big as your palm. And from a flint napping and reduction standpoint, in my opinion, these cannot be anything else but reduced to low points. I mean, I'm positive when they started doing these, and we don't have any other bifaces from any other points, and we've got manufacturing failures. So putting together a manufacturing technique and background on these, I think, is going to be a really interesting part of the project. So the in the real one of the main important parts is the study of the Clovis stage fluted material. Um, we've kind of settled into three types: the regular Clovis, North American influence, the what we call the wasted Clovis, and then the fishtail. The fishtail is really well known in South America. The northern Clovis, I mean, the North American Clovis obviously is really well known, but this wasted Clovis is going to be is really starting to be special. I'll hurry along a little bit. There in our area, where you have up here, this is kind of North American stuff, down to the fishtails in South America, and so we'll talk a little bit about where Central America fits in. Um, what we're really looking for is technology techniques. Not so much that these things look exactly like Clovis or exactly like fishtails, but where are parts of the technology coming from? So most of us know what a Clovis point looks like, or even a Clovis biface with the overshot and fluting. These are pretty heavy bases, things like that, with overshot. If y'all can see that, overshots across the base. These are all from August Pine Ridge, and for the most part, a lot of them look very, very similar to North American Clovis. Here's a little bit more with the overshot flaking there, and then really well set up fluting stems here and here. This is a new one that I photographed actually last week in another collection. But I mean, this one here looks like a really elegant Clovis from perhaps the south of the eastern United States. We also find macro blades that look a lot like big overshot flakes and prismatic flakes, which are also diagnostic of North American Clovis, but we have plenty of samples of each of these as well. The fishtails have been studied in South America for decades. Not a whole lot of North American archaeology students really understand the length and breadth of the studies that have gone on in South America into the late Pleistocene period. There have been really high quality and very productive studies and archaeology that has happened down there. Sorry, somebody. I'll get to the chat and just when I finish. Okay. Oh, God, sorry. Did I? What did I do? Oh, sorry. Um, so it's it it the yeah the like I said, the fishtails are pretty well known. They come in a couple of different types with these rounded shoulders, and then the long stemmed variety as well. Um, but there's dozens of these that have come out in well identified context, closed period in South America, both in Argentina, Chile, Peru, southern Brazil as well. So this occupation it's been well documented in South America. I think I'm hung up.
Are you trying to move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh,
Are you just using the arrows on your keyboard?
yeah, well, both in my cursor when my
Okay.
mouse too.
Yeah,
Um,
try both. Let's see how that works.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Technology is iffy. It happens
Yeah,
all the time.
this this new some of the new releases of Zoom have been a bit challenging as well.
If you need to, you
I
can
tell you
exit
what, yeah,
out of it and bring it back up.
yeah, let me try that. Uh, okay, let's see. There you go. Sorry. So as far as our assemblage there in August Pine Ridge, we have examples of these kind of rounded base fishtails um, with a kind of a, a parallel edged stem on them, and then we also have these clearly stemmed and shouldered forms of the fishtail as well. So, you know, the point is that in this area, we have this is another representation of the fishtail technology. These big, wide blades. They're not overshot, but they're 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 forming these wide blades that are napped down into more of a stemmed base and then fluted. And we see that both in the South American fishtails and the the lithics that we've got there in August Pine Ridge. Kind of the same thing. It really is fishtail technology and morphology as well. And the other point is one of the questions that always gets asked is were these brought in? Well, a lot of our collection is manufacturing failures. So these points were not being made somewhere else and brought in. They were being made on the sand ridge because we've got all of the debitage and the manufacturing failures to go with it. So I think we've got very good documentation there. So when we talk, these wasted fluted points are the biggest representation in our catalog of fluted bifaces. Um, and we think they're a really good representation of how technology was traveling up and down the land bridge from North America through Central America into South America and back, really. And the technologies seem to blend up in Central America, in Belize especially. So these they have a little bit of the fishtail qualities. They've got a little bit of the northern Clovis technologies as well. It's really interesting that the Belize nappers really like to use uniface technology using the big flakes as their preforms. You can see a lot of these really nicely made fluted points are made on flakes, and it's just a characteristic that we really don't see in North America for sure. And then just to kind of sum it up, the 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 wasted fluted point is a big number in our catalog, but we do have good representation of both the fishtail and the North American, you know, the bigger North American Clovis in the in our catalog. And so, you know, going at the theory of at least fluted technology moving up and down the land bridge, you know, is one of our goals to really document that and analyze it. As far as the late paleo, when we talk about the Pine Ridge points, the unfluted lanceolate, we do see some of that technology both in southern Mexico and northern South America, where perhaps it's more regionalized the theory is that as populations grew, they didn't necessarily have to travel, thousands of miles. Perhaps their range was like hundreds of miles, and so the sharing of certain technologies like that might have been a lot more prevalent, both and in reciprocal manners. So, this you know this is what was going on when the fluted biface technology halted. It seemed to be fairly rapidly, and the changes within the technology seemed to be pretty rapid as well. Um, with just talking about in the late Paleo, four distinct morphologies of these bifaces, there's no other place where in North or South America, especially Central and South America, that all of these differentiation of these points shows up in one site, which makes this one even along with the fluted bifaces and their variability really important for the study of that late Paleo period as well. Um, Really, what we've shown is that this area has at least 13,000 continuous years of occupation, all the way up into the classic Maya, starting in the late Pleistocene, and by far the the number of recovered artifacts, a very high quality catalog, makes this the most prolific area and the most prolific project in all of Central America, studying this period. So, like I was saying before, we are co-hosting with Mike Waters and his group at the SAAs this year. The symposium will be Central America and South America, late Pleistocene and early Holocene. So we'll get some of the South American researchers up there in San Francisco with us. And then also, you may have heard of the Paleo-American Odyssey that Mike Waters' group is putting on in Santa Fe. Will be a pretty big part of that, since it's really dedicated to the first peopling of the Americas, and we're filling in that Central American spot that heretofore has been somewhat blank in the study of the first Americans. So we feel like we're making a pretty important contribution to that area of study. So we've got a really hardworking team there in Belize. The project is a part of the Galt School of Archaeological Research. John and I are both on the board of Galt. There's a lot going on there, if y'all haven't heard. But this project is the main research project of the Galt School right now. So anyway, like I said, I appreciate the invitation. Hope this has been a bit educational for you guys. And I'm gonna get out of here and be happy to answer questions or whatever.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was a great presentation. I thought it was really great you got the community involved. I didn't know that they didn't know a lot about their own history. But yes, anyone who will allow about 10-15 minutes for questions. Scott already has one in the chat. What is it like? Sorry, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. You might want to read that yourself. Okay. Okay, I muted myself. What is it like to conduct research on a time period in an area where there has been nothing like it before by archaeologists, no prior history?
The One of the big hurdles from the very beginning, especially working with the Institute, who are really, really good people. I mean, they've got a lot to do, because obviously there's a lot of Maya archaeology, a lot of Maya sites in Belize that are under their purview. Uh, so when we approached them, out in the really in the boonies where there was nothing, they started questioning, and but when they understood that this is really important stuff, and no, it doesn't appear anywhere else in Maya archaeology. They've been very supportive, and we've really benefited from that, even though we've got no predecessors, no other work really in Central America, or very little, let's say, uh, to use as context for what we're doing. So it's uh, it's been kind of exciting to actually start naming stuff that nobody else has named or anything like that, and so it has been very fulfilling so far.
All right, if we have any more questions, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead.
I do have a question. It's a very interesting presentation. Thank you for being with us tonight. Is any of the material from the site actually come from datable from a context that has been dated?
No, one of the are among among a number of challenges. Um, the sand matrix, the sediment where all of this stuff is coming from, um, is real acidic, and no organics survive there. Um, the area used to be a very large pine forest because of the tropical pines can actually grow in this acidic environment with a fair amount of underground water and things like that. Um, but there's no evidence of any organics below the surface. So there's not much hope of finding anything datable by radiocarbon. Um, Mike Waters and his grad student from A&M were down doing some geoarchaeology. They see the possibility of possibly doing OSL there, um, to try to get at least a feel for the dating of the sand layers where this stuff is coming from. But as far as any benchmarks or anything like that, it's just it's like digging at the beach, with sand and the occasional stone. So that's a real trying to get that level of context uh, is going to be an ongoing challenge.
Hold on a second. It looks
Oh,
like you might have another one in the chat, but I can't.
yeah. I
Okay.
think Scott was asking about our relationship with the local community. August Pine Ridge is about 2,000 people. It's 20 miles from the bigger cities, and all across this area, there are these villages of 1,000 to 2,000 people, these little, literally occupation centers where, these people either do a little bit of farming, a little bit of craft work. A lot of them work for the Mennonites. The Mennonite communities are about 6 or 7 miles away, where there's black dirt, where they can actually farm and ranch. And since the Mennonites, don't use machinery or anything like that, they employ the village people to do some of the labor for them, uh, to chauffeur them around if the family wants to go into Orange Walk to do some shopping or whatever. A number of the guys who are entrepreneurial enough to have one or two cars available, they'll basically be a full-time chauffeur for some of the Mennonite families. So they do make some money out of that. But Belize overall is not a really very wealthy country at all, and it's very rural. But the people live very simply. They're really really friendly, gracious people, and we very much enjoy paying them back by going into the schools, and talking with the kids. Plus, there in August Pine Ridge, we do help support their economy because the guys who work for us do make a pretty decent, reliable wage for the month or so that we're there, versus waiting for the call from their cousin or brother to come out and dig sand, which is kind of a not an it's a fairly unreliable source of income. So we do support them by some labor wages. We buy our supplies, and our field meals and things. Like we do bring meals out in the field because we're like only half a mile away from the village. So when we take a lunch break, one of the sisters of the crew, uh, two of their sisters own little restaurants or whatever. So we'll buy all of our meals from them and support them as we can. So the relationship, I think, is really beneficial. They do look forward to us coming, and they're very hospitable.
What is the source of the lithics, and are they different among the four types?
They are. From raw materials, I'm pretty comfortable with the raw materials being sourced from at least three distinct quarries. In both the artifacts, or all the finished artifacts, the debitage, the tools, and things like that. There's a recurrent There are recurrent types of chert that we see that are pretty easily identifiable when you put them side by side. Um, we've looked around a fair amount, but we have yet to discover the quarries. Um, there's no chert really out on the Pine Ridge. There's no chert outcrops there. The chert outcrops are 6 to 10 miles away. Uh, and we know where some of them are, but as far as matching up what comes out of these known quarry areas to our actual artifacts, we've not discovered where the raw materials are coming from. Mm-hmm. But just like paleo people in North America, and really what we've seen in South America too, especially the Clovis people and the late paleo people, really were pretty finicky about the quality of chert that they used for their lithics. Generally, any kind of Clovis material that you find is going to be the highest grade chert that they can procure. The same way with the South American fishtails and some of their late paleo stuff. And it's the same way here in Belize. They found sources of very high quality chert, and they used the heck out of it. So it's a real statement of continuity and the way these people behaved. Not sure how far they had to go to get it and carry it back, but they were doing a lot of it.
Thank you.
I have a question. I got in late, so I apologize. Where did all the sand come from?
The sand is pretty ancient. They're not sure whether it was a beach or a shallow ocean, but the sand well predates the last ice age. But it's basically not necessarily on Texas beaches, but you go over to Florida and like in Destin and that area, you got real fluffy white sand, and this is the same consistency, but there's not been a great deal of geology done on this particular area. Just because they kind of know where the oil is, and that's where they do the geology. But the sand ridge is pretty ancient.
Thanks.
Scott, right. Yeah, Scott's asking about the Maya, the Maya and the lack of Maya. I kind of estimated this, having worked in the Maya area for a couple of decades. It's very noticeable when you get into an area where you don't have Maya, at least small farming villages of the Maya, with house mounds and ceramics, things like that. And that's one thing about this area around the Pine Ridge, is that you don't find any house mounds, you don't find any ceramics. You can tell that there was traffic coming through there, but just no settlement, um, at any period of the Maya culture. I think I couldn't see all of your questions, Scott, but I hope that answers it.
All right, we've got time for maybe one more question if anyone's just dying to ask something.
Let me add. Uh, we have published a number of reports on this project. Everything we've done, all of our reports are available on the GALT website, um, under our research tab. Um, and then we'll be producing another couple of papers this next year. But to get a much better feel for what we've done, what the thing looks like, a lot more pictures of the artifacts, things like that. It's all on the GALT website.
All right, well, if there are no more questions, Paul, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
If there are no more questions, thank you so much for a great presentation, and
Thank you.
yeah, we wish you a great night.
Okay, we really appreciate it. All
Of
right,
course.
y'all take care.
Thank you very much.